We're going to take a break from the political news now because let me show you the outside of Buckingham Palace, where the flag is lowered as it's been announced that the Duchess of Kent, the cousin of Queen Elizabeth and wife of the Duke of Kent, has died. She was 92.
What if a single loss could shift the balance of an entire monarchy? A quiet departure, a farewell wrapped in sorrow, yet carrying the weight of history itself. The passing of the Duchess of Kent wasn't just another headline, it was a turning point that left whispers echoing through the corridors of Buckingham Palace.
The Duchess of Kent, who's died at the age of 92.
She lived in the shadows of grandeur, known for her grace, her humility, and her ability to hold the family together without demanding the spotlight. But now, with her sudden passing, the royal circle feels smaller, more fragile, and dangerously close to change. The impact has reached far beyond grief. It has drawn Prince William and Princess Catherine into a destiny they can no longer delay. Some call it fate, others call it timing, but behind the palace walls, this moment has accelerated decisions that were never meant to come so soon. The crown feels heavier, the path clearer, and the future of the monarchy forever altered. Stay with us as we uncover how this single event sealed the fate of William and Catherine and why it may have changed the monarchy for generations to come. The quiet strength of the Duchess. The Duchess of Kent was never the kind of royal who needed a stage to prove her worth. She did not crave flashing cameras or glowing headlines. She carried herself differently, calmly, gracefully, almost as if she wanted the world to notice the work more than the person behind it. In a family often known for grand ceremonies, dazzling crowns, and constant attention, her way of living stood out. She taught, without saying it aloud, that sometimes the greatest strength is the quiet kind. Her passions revealed who she truly was. While many royals leaned on tradition and appearances, she leaned on humanity. Music was one of her biggest loves. For her, music wasn't just art, it was a bridge that connected hearts. She supported young students who had talent but lacked opportunity.
Her most unconventional step, however, was to teach music, her greatest passion, at a state primary school in Hull, not as a royal, but as Mrs. Kent.
She showed up in their lives not as a duchess wrapped in luxury, but as a mentor who believed in them. She became a symbol of encouragement for those who thought the royal world was too distant to ever notice them. Education was another cause she carried close. She didn't just put her name on projects, she invested time and energy into them. And that's what made her different. She didn't seek applause or recognition, she wanted impact. That's why, at a time when she could have lived in the constant glow of royal duties, she quietly stepped back. She chose a path most royals avoid, a private life, away from constant palace engagements. That decision said a lot about her. She cared less about the glitter of crowns and more about the depth of souls. Inside the royal family, her influence was subtle but deep. Young William often observed her steady presence. She wasn't someone who raised her voice or demanded respect. It came naturally because of the way she carried herself. Catherine, too, found inspiration in her. Unlike many royals who could feel distant or untouchable, the Duchess was approachable. She made people feel at ease. To Catherine, she proved that being royal didn't mean being above others. It meant serving them with humility. This is why many say she was a bridge between generations. The older royals were often bound to strict traditions, rarely showing emotion or personal choice. The younger royals longed for freedom, individuality, and connection with the public. The Duchess stood in the middle. She showed that you could honor tradition while still being human, still being kind, still choosing your own path. Her quiet strength left behind a lesson that now rests heavily on William and Catherine's shoulders. She showed them that power isn't about jewels, titles, or palaces. True power comes from character, how you treat others, how you use your influence, and how you remain steady even when the world is watching. And when she passed, That strength turned from example into responsibility. For William and Catherine, it was no longer something to admire from afar. It became something to live by, something to carry into their own future as the next king and queen. A loss that shook the palace. When the Duchess of Kent passed away, the official announcement was short and almost understated. A few calm words from the palace, a respectful confirmation of her death, and nothing more.
Buckingham Palace has tonight announced the death of the oldest member of the royal family, Catherine, the Duchess of Kent.
There were no long tributes, no dramatic ceremonies to follow. To the public, it may have seemed like just another royal update. But inside the palace walls, the silence spoke louder than any statement. For those who knew her, it was not just a passing, it was the loss of a steady presence who had quietly shaped the royal family for decades. At the age of 92, her departure was not unexpected. She had lived a long life, full of dignity and service. Yet, even with such years behind her, the moment struck with surprising force. That's the strange truth about loss, it rarely feels timely, no matter the age. And in this case, it felt as though an invisible thread that held parts of the family together had suddenly been cut. The Duchess had always been a constant figure at royal occasions. Whether it was her presence at Wimbledon, cheering alongside the crowd, or her steady support at charity events, she showed the world a side of royalty that felt approachable and real. She wasn't the queen, nor the heir to the throne, but she represented something equally important: continuity. A reminder that the monarchy was made up not only of crowns and thrones, but also of people who quietly worked behind the scenes. The public tributes were respectful but brief. Newspapers wrote about her long life, her contributions, and her gentle nature. Yet behind the closed doors of the palace, the atmosphere was far heavier. For Catherine, it was deeply personal. She hadn't just lost a senior member of the family, she had lost a guide, a role model who had shown her that being royal didn't mean giving up kindness or humility. For William, the impact was even sharper. It was a reminder that time was moving faster than he wanted to believe. With every senior royal's passing, the spotlight shifted more firmly onto him. The invisible weight of the crown seemed to grow heavier, even though it was not yet on his head. That's the reality of monarchy. Every death reshapes the order, no matter how far the person may seem from the throne. One loss means fewer shoulders to share the burden, fewer voices to guide, fewer examples to follow. In this case, the Duchess's death highlighted something everyone inside the palace already knew, but rarely admitted. The future was arriving sooner than expected. The palace grew quieter in the days that followed. The public saw tradition, routine, and respectful silence. But for William and Catherine, the meaning ran deeper. They were no longer simply learning from others, waiting for their moment. That moment was inching closer, pushing them into positions of responsibility they once thought were still years away. The Duchess's passing was not only the closing of one life's chapter, it was the subtle opening of theirs.
Buckingham Palace confirmed the news early Friday, noting the Duchess passed away peacefully on Thursday, surrounded by family, with King Charles and Queen Camilla paying tribute to her lifelong devotion to charity, her passion for music, and her empathy for young people.
William and Catherine, destiny sealed. What does it really mean when we say that destiny is sealed? For William and Catherine, the passing of the Duchess of Kent was more than a family loss. It was a signal, almost like a silent bell ringing inside the palace walls. The years of waiting, of watching, of preparing in the shadows were over. They had stepped into a new reality. The days of carrying the monarchy's future had begun. For William, this realization came with both pride and pressure. Throughout his life, he had watched senior royals shoulder the responsibilities of the crown. His grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, had set the ultimate example of duty and resilience. His father, King Charles, carried the weight of transition. And the Duchess of Kent had offered something different: guidance wrapped in quiet wisdom. She was never one to give grand speeches or force her opinion, but in the small moments, she taught lessons that stayed with him. She encouraged humility when pride could have taken over. She reminded him that patience often outshines power, and perhaps most importantly, she showed him that truly listening, was as vital to leadership as speaking. Today, those qualities define William as Prince of Wales. Catherine, too, had found inspiration in the Duchess. Entering the royal family was never easy, especially with the eyes of the world on her every move. But the Duchess showed her that balance was possible. She taught her how to be royal without losing the warmth of being relatable. Catherine learned how to stand before cameras with poise, yet keep her smile genuine. She understood that duty didn't mean giving up authenticity, it meant shaping it into something that served both the family and the people. When the Duchess passed, the shift was subtle yet undeniable. There was no grand announcement telling William and Catherine their time had come. But that's the thing about monarchy, it rarely hands over responsibility with clear words. Instead, it moves quietly, almost invisibly. The absence of one figure becomes the presence of another. And so, without ceremony, without a crown being placed on their heads, William and Catherine became the figures the public now looked toward. They were no longer just heirs in waiting, sheltered by the wisdom of an older generation. They were the present. The eyes of Britain, and indeed the world, turned to them with a new kind of expectation. People no longer saw them as the young couple learning from elders, they saw them as the faces of the monarchy's survival. That was the true sealing of destiny. This change didn't roar like thunder. It whispered like the stillness after a storm. It was the silence that follows when a respected figure leaves forever, leaving behind not emptiness, but responsibility. For William and Catherine, that silence was louder than any public declaration. It told them, your moment is here, ready or not. And from that day forward, their lives were no longer about preparation. They were about leadership, about carrying forward the very crown that once felt so far away. The weight of legacy. Every monarch carries a crown, but no two crowns are ever the same.
Our new Prince and Princess of Wales will, I know, continue to inspire and lead our national conversations, helping to bring the marginal to the centre ground, where vital help can be given.
Some shine brightly with jewels, catching the eyes of millions, but their true weight is not gold, it is the invisible burden of what they represent. Some crowns are carried with pride, tied to moments of glory and unity. Others are heavy with history, reminding their wearers of mistakes, scandals, and promises broken. And then there are crowns that feel heavier than all of these combined because they are built not only on the past, but also on the expectations of the future. For William and Catherine, the crown they are destined to inherit does not rest on their heads yet, but they already feel its weight pressing down on their shoulders. Unlike those before them, they are heirs in a time when the monarchy is questioned more than ever. They are not only preparing for thrones and ceremonies, they are preparing to prove that the monarchy itself still matters in a world that has changed faster than the palace walls can keep up. And that is perhaps the heaviest crown of all. The Duchess of Kent represented something different, something older, quieter, and steadier. She was part of a style of royalty that placed service before self, humility before fame, and duty before comfort. Her generation did not chase headlines. In fact, they often avoided them. Their strength came not from being seen everywhere, but from being trusted even when they were not seen at all. She embodied the idea that a royal's true worth was not in the applause they received, but in the lives they touched quietly, without demanding recognition. Today, the world Catherine and William face looks nothing like that. Cameras never turn off. A single step, a single word, even a single glance can be captured and shared with millions in seconds. Scandals spread across continents before the palace can even issue a response. Every gesture, Every outfit, every sentence in a speech is dissected by critics, commentators, and strangers alike. Where the Duchess of Kent could move with a degree of privacy, William and Catherine live under constant magnifying glass. And yet, the values she stood for, the quiet dignity, the steady service, the belief that humility is not weakness, but strength, are exactly what they must hold on to if they wish to survive this new world. That is the true legacy she left them. Not jewels, not estates, not titles that shine brighter than the rest, but a lesson far more lasting. Character outlives crowns. It is not the ceremonies that make a royal remembered, but the values they carry. When history writes about the Duchess, it will not only mention her title, it will mention her kindness, her loyalty, her refusal to let power overshadow humanity. And for William and Catherine, the reminder is clear: the monarchy can only endure if it builds on those same values. Every event they attend is no longer just a public appearance. Every speech they give is not just words on a page. Every choice they make is no longer only about today, it is about shaping how the monarchy will be remembered tomorrow. If they stumble, the cracks in the institution grow larger. If they stand strong with humility, the crown remains steady for another generation. That is the kind of responsibility that cannot be written into law, but it weighs heavier than any jewel in the crown itself. For Catherine, this responsibility is both empowering and challenging. She must be the queen who can connect with ordinary people, the mother who raises her children with grace, and the royal who holds herself with dignity on the world stage. For William, it is about becoming the kind of king his grandmother once was respected, not only because of his position, but because of his character. And together, they must prove that the monarchy can remain both modern and meaningful. This is why the Duchess's life matters even after her passing. She lived as proof that simplicity and sincerity outlast grandeur. She showed that royalty does not need to shout in order to leave an echo. And now, her example is not a gentle suggestion for William and Catherine, it is a demand, a responsibility they cannot ignore. The weight of legacy is not measured in carats or crowns. It is measured in how faithfully the next generation carries the lessons of the past into the storms of the future. For William and Catherine, the crown they will one day wear is already heavy. But if they remember the Duchess of Kent's message, they may find that even the heaviest crown can be carried with grace. A future rewritten. With the Duchess gone, the royal family faces a future that feels more immediate, more pressing than ever before. The uncertainty surrounding King Charles's health only sharpens the questions of succession that grow louder each day.
King Charles smiled and waved to crowds this morning, a day after spending time in hospital dealing with side effects from his cancer treatment.
Within the palace, whispers replace certainty, and anticipation replaces calm. No longer are William and Catherine seen as distant heirs waiting patiently for their time. They are now regarded as the visible face of the monarchy's survival, the couple who must hold together an institution that feels increasingly fragile in a changing world. The Duchess's passing sealed their destiny in a way few moments could. Until now, William and Catherine had lived under the steady shadow of others, receiving guidance, advice, and protection from those who carried the heavier weight of responsibility. But that safety net has vanished. Suddenly, the burden is theirs alone to carry. The world's gaze has shifted. They are no longer admired simply as a graceful couple raising their young family. They are viewed as the torchbearers of a centuries-old crown, and every move they make will define how history remembers the monarchy in the decades ahead. The time for waiting is over. Their preparation has ended quietly, without ceremony, without fanfare, ushered in not by trumpets and royal proclamations, but by the silence of grief. Leadership is no longer a choice, but an expectation. They must embody grace, but more than that, they must inspire trust. Without public trust, the monarchy cannot endure. In a society that questions authority at every turn, and where scandals can erupt with a single photograph or careless remark, the crown survives only if its holders are seen as worthy. This is why the Duchess's death represents more than private loss. It marks a shift in history. The monarchy does not often change through grand announcements. Sometimes it changes through absence. The quiet departure of someone who anchored the family can alter the balance just as profoundly as a coronation. William and Catherine now stand alone at the center of the stage. The cameras are fixed on them, the headlines revolve around them, and the people look to them as the symbols of continuity. The Duchess will be remembered as a quiet presence, a woman who never sought the spotlight, but who shaped, with gentle strength, those who now must live in it. Yet her death may be recorded as the exact turning point when William and Catherine crossed an invisible threshold. They are no longer heirs in waiting. They have stepped ready or not into the role of guardians. They are no longer sheltered by older generations. The crown does not wait for perfect timing. It comes when destiny demands it. And so, the narrative of William and Catherine has been rewritten. They are no longer just the hope of tomorrow. They are the reality of today. They have moved from being symbols of promise to pillars of responsibility. What lies ahead will test not only their resilience, but the very strength of the monarchy itself. History has turned a page, and their story begins anew, not by choice, but by necessity. The story of the Duchess of Kent's passing is more than the end of a chapter. It is the beginning of another. Her quiet life and sudden death have placed a spotlight not on her, but on those she influenced. William and Catherine. The monarchy stands at a crossroads. The old guard is fading, and the new leaders must prove themselves worthy. For William and Catherine, the weight of expectation is heavier than ever. Yet, as we've seen, the lessons they carry are strong: humility, service, and the quiet strength that defined the Duchess herself. Perhaps this is why her passing feels like destiny being sealed, not because her life ended, but because her legacy continues through them. The crown is not just a symbol, it is a test, and the future of the monarchy will depend on how they carry it. What do you think? Has the Duchess's death truly changed the course of royal history? Has it sealed William and Catherine's path as the next king and queen in ways no one expected? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into royal history, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story that shapes the future of the crown.